Hello, sisters. I'll begin by providing an update on some recent activities of our chapter. First, for those interested, talks from our recent convention, Growing the Women's Liberation Movement, are now accessible for viewing on our YouTube channel. On October 1st, we published a blog post by our Lesbian Caucus that addresses the pros and cons of the institution of marriage for women and for lesbians in particular, and encourages commentary from those with ideas about what family and community structures that center and benefit women and girls might look like. Also, Brianna and Elizabeth, our state contacts for Illinois and Minnesota, were recently interviewed by WLRN to discuss the critical work they are doing to support incarcerated women in their respective states. Last week, ICONS announced that they were one step closer to holding the NCAA accountable for championing men and women's sports. The case ICONS refers to has been ongoing since Riley Gaines, along with 18 other female athletes, sued the NCAA in March 2024 over its policies that allowed male athletes to compete in women's events. Specifically, the class action suit stems from the 2022 NCAA Women's Swimming and Diving Championships held at Georgia Tech, where Will Thomas was allowed to compete and dominate. While the September 25th ruling is something of a mixed bag, as it dismissed claims against the state defendants, as well as the constitutional claims against the NCAA for complicated reasons that I won't go into here. The federal judge also ruled that the Title IX claims against the association can move forward, which is an important win for women and girls. The case now rides on whether or not the NCAA is a Title IX federal funding recipient, as alleged by plaintiffs, citing the NCAA's Concussion Research Alliance with the Department of Defense. On September 30th, the U.S. Department of Education's Office for Civil Rights and the Department of Health and Human Services announced that the Minnesota Department of Education and the Minnesota State High School League are both in violation of Title IX for allowing males to compete in female sports and occupy female intimate facilities. The departments have issued a proposed resolution agreement to voluntarily resolve their Title IX violations within 10 days or risk imminent enforcement action. The agreement requires a number of action items, including that MDE will restore to female athletes all records and titles misappropriated by male athletes competing in female categories, and send each female a letter of apology on behalf of the state of Minnesota for allowing her educational experience to be marred by sex discrimination. Redux reports that an upcoming Pride Festival in Union County, North Carolina is attracting controversy after advertising sponsorship from nonprofit organization Carolina's LGBT plus Chamber of Commerce, whose president and CEO is a convicted child sex offender. Chad Turner was first accused by 3 boys of sexual abuse in '98, was convicted on one of those offenses, and then sentenced to 10 years for committing lewd acts on a minor under the age of 16, though he served only 2 years before being released on parole and ordered to register as a sex offender. Since his release, Turner has become an active and notable member of the Charlotte LGBTQ advocacy community, and that's a quote. First elected head of the CLGBTCC in 2012, he has had his post renewed repeatedly, despite the information on his sex offenses being widely known. And yet another reminder that we are living in clown world. On the 1st, the New York Post reported that Harvard has hired a drag queen as a new professor who performs under the name of Lahore Vagistan. The institution welcomed Kareem Kubchandani in a July message and revealed that the visiting academic from Tufts University will teach 2 classes over the course of 2 semesters, queer ethnography in the fall and rue politics, drag, race, and desire in the spring semester, according to Harvard's announcement. Today, the Supreme Court heard oral arguments in the case of Childs versus Salazar, which concerns a challenge to a 2019 Colorado law banning conversion therapy that aims to change a minor's sexual orientation or gender identity. At issue is whether a law that censors certain conversations between counselors and their clients based on the viewpoints expressed regulates conduct or violates the free speech clause of the First Amendment. As Kristen Z writes, Colorado insists it is regulating professional conduct, but in practice, the law polices speech, threatening penalties for one side while explicitly permitting affirmation-only approaches. More than 20 states have adopted similar bans, meaning a ruling here will ripple nationwide. And finally, Carol's most recent Female Free Speech Friday post celebrates Leslie Ledesma, who recently led a student walkout at Esperanza High School in Anaheim, California, because the school allowed a male student to use the girls' bathroom, the result of California's AB 1266, which passed in 2013. When the girls at Esperanza brought their concerns to school officials, they were told that they would then have to make accommodations. They would have to go use the nurse's restroom. They would have to deal with feeling unsafe while they are at school. Kara relates that on 3 separate occasions, the U.S. Supreme Court has refused to take up the question of whether schools may or must maintain single-sex bathrooms and locker rooms. So young people are being forced to take matters into their own hands, which is exactly what they did on October 1st under Leslie's leadership. Thank you. That's all I have today.